Hi, my name's Michelle Dubis, and I'm with the August Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. I'm the Farmers Market Manager at Boulder, and today we are going to be making a frittata. And that frittata is going to be including spinach, goat cheese, and mushroom. And we're going to do something super fun with it. We're going to put it in muffin tins today and bake it. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about with a frittata is that it's just simple and easy. And there's simple steps to be followed with every frittata. One, you want to get all of your core ingredients done. So if you're going to do the mushrooms and the spinach and the goat's cheese and all of that, have that ready to go. And then we move on to our egg mixture. So I've kind of done that today. So I've chopped up some mushrooms and some onion. I've gotten our spinach ready. And with the spinach, this was 4 cups. It's not 4 cups anymore because what I did is I blanched and shocked it. So what that means is I put it into hot boiling water, took it out, and then threw it into an ice bath. And that wilted my spinach down. So the spinach is, I dried it out as much as I could. So I just took all the spinach and squeezed it out like a sponge. The next thing that I'll have in the frittata will be some crumbled goat's cheese, sour cream, and our eggs. And then a little bit of salt and pepper. So basically, I'm going to start with sauteing these mushrooms and onions in a cast iron skillet. So now I'm just going to put some oil into the skillet, get it kind of hot. Not too much, about a tablespoon. And then I'm going to grab my mushrooms. And right here I've got about 2 cups of mushrooms. So just, I kind of eyeball it, but about 2 cups of sliced up cremini mushrooms. So those are your baby portobellas. So this is just going to we're going to sweat these down until they're nice and soft. All right. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm also going to actually just toss my onions in right away too. So now we're just going to saute this down. Stir it up a bit. And what I like to do when I'm making these fillings, I actually like to salt it a little bit during this process. It just kind of brings the flavor out a lot more. All right. And it's good you can season along the way because then you can kind of figure out what sort of consistency you're going to want for that flavor, because some people like a lot of salt and some people don't. And again, just give it a nice stir. And this will take probably about 5 to 7, 8-ish minutes to get it nice and soft. And then you'll have kind of that base filling done. And keep that heat probably around a medium heat, nothing too high. While that's going, I can probably just get the eggs started. So I've cracked a few eggs already into a measuring cup. And what I did when I cracked the eggs is I needed to kind of check them out first. You should always check your eggs before you actually put them all in one container. So what I do, just crack it, open it up and check out the egg. Make sure there's no blood spots. Make sure that white looks nice and healthy and that yolk is coming up very bright and vibrant. So now I can kind of just then take that egg, put it into the container. Again, do the same process. Check your egg first. Make sure it's healthy and happy. And good, we've got another great looking egg. And again, put it into the container. I've put about 8 to 9 eggs in here, and they're ready to be whipped. So you can do it in 2 different ways. I like to do mine in a blender. You don't have to have a Vitamix. Any old blender will do, just as long as it whips the eggs up and it gets them nice and fluffy. The other way, you can just put them in a steel bowl, or even better, a copper bowl. A copper bowl is great because it creates this light and fluffy texture when you're whipping those egg whites. But to save me time and energy, I just like to put it into a blender. And then just for a little extra richness, I put some sour cream in it. And it doesn't have to be long. You don't want to over whip it, because once you over whip it, then it becomes, you can actually separate those eggs and you don't get that light and fluffy texture. So start it on low, and then you can gradually take it up. Just for a few seconds, whip it, get it nice and fluffy, ready to roll. And then you have some nice whipped eggs. Okay, so let's go and check our filling out again. So everything's looking pretty good over here. Filling is starting to get nice and kind of soft, and the onions are starting to sweat and they're becoming opaque or translucent. They're becoming translucent. And the mushrooms are starting to get that nice, soft, tender sort of bite to them. So I'm actually going to take this off the heat now, let it cool down, and I'm going to take this into a bowl over here. Just going to scrape it in here. Okay, so that's ready. And I've also now prepared my spinach. I did that earlier on. And I also chopped it up so you don't get those big, huge spinachy pieces mixed into that frittata. Instead, they're a little more bite-sized. And again, remember to squeeze that liquid out, because that liquid basically creates too much moisture in your frittata. And if you have too much moisture, then you're going to get kind of a soupy, mushy frittata. Okay, so then mix that up pretty good. And remember, with that spinach, I used 4 cups, with the mushrooms 2 cups, with the onions about a half a cup. And then again, I'm just going to put a pinch of salt, a little bit of pepper. Again, stir it up. So our mixture is looking pretty good. And now we can add our eggs. And again, if you can see, those eggs look really quite fluffy. So hopefully that'll show when you're baking your frittata. And also that fluffiness is going to help that frittata rise a bit and almost look like a muffin. But it's not going to stay risen. It's almost like a souffle. So it'll rise and then shrink down a little bit, but it still turns out looking quite beautiful. Okay, so our mixture's done. So earlier, I got pans ready, and these little muffin tins, basically, all buttered up. You want to make sure they're quite heavily buttered, otherwise it's going to be hard to pop the muffins or the frittatas out. So what I like to do, just to make things simpler, before I pour them into my muffin tin, I'll actually put it right back into the blender. This is messy cooks, but it does work as long as you can manage yourself. So now you have kind of a nice, easy pour spout when you're putting your batter or mixture into the muffin tins. And also, to make sure you get all of that goodness in, have a spatula with you so you can make sure you get some mushrooms and spinach and all of that good stuff into each little tin. And when you're doing this, you just kind of have to be a little bit delicate because otherwise, as you can see, the egg kind of does get all over the place because you've got the spinach and the mushrooms, but they'll still come out looking quite nice. So I've got the oven preheating at 350. And before I put these in, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of crumbled goat's cheese right on top. You can do that actually now before you put it in, or you can do it right at the end of the baking process. But I just figure I put it in right now. So just a little bit on each one, or you can put a lot on each one, whatever you want to do, because goat's cheese is delicious. And these muffin tin ideas are quite fun because basically you can pop them out and you can serve them, you know, for any sort of event, especially since Mother's Day is coming up. They're a great kind of little brunch item and really easy to prepare. And really, this takes no time at all. Okay, so they're all ready and set to go in the oven. And we're gonna put them in for about 10 to 12 minutes and check them. All right, so our frittatas are done. They smell pretty good. It's been about 15 minutes for the entire process. The oven started at 350, but I actually took it up to about 375, about halfway through. And the best thing to kind of keep in mind with the frittatas is to fill them about 3/4 of the way in the cups. Otherwise, they get a little full, which I did. But see, we've got a little bit of a rise in them, but they're going to deflate in a little while. But almost like a souffle, they'll puff up and then come right back down. So now we need to let them cool for a few minutes before we even think about taking them out. Otherwise, they'll just be a big mushy mess and they're not going to look like these beautiful muffin cups. But what you can do is you can start taking your spatula and you can kind of work those edges a little bit. So when you do pop them out, they come out pretty easily. And your eggs should be nice and light and fluffy. And what you can do with these, if they don't turn out looking as beautiful as you want, you can put them in nice displays, maybe in a basket, maybe on a really nice plate setting, and people will just see that they look like nice shaped muffins and they're going to be quite beautiful that you can have at any sort of party. So I'm going to just cut around some of them a little bit more. And with eggs, you don't want to overdo them because if you overdo them, then they just become very dense and they don't have that nice light and fluffy airiness to them. So like I said before, about 15 minutes is the right time for these frittatas. So now these are just going to need to cool for a little bit and then we'll pop them out. These have been resting for about 5 minutes, so they're about ready to pop out. So let's take a look and see how beautiful they are. Ooh, perfect. So now they're gonna look great any way you wanna put them down. And like I was saying, just kind of loosen up the edges, play around with them, but they'll start to pop out quite easily. You can't just tip them over like regular muffins, but they still come out looking quite nice. So, voila. So now what I like to do is just put a little bit of color on it. And there you go. You've got beautiful frittatas baked out of a muffin tin.